Continuing with the ER diagram, we will discuss some special or extended features of an ER diagram today. The first one being the participation constraint. So these are, we can say, the extended features of an ER diagram. First of all, we have the participation constraint. Then we have some other concepts like specialization, generalization, and aggregation. So these are the four important extended ER features. The first one being the participation constraint, the second one being specialization, third one is generalization, and the aggregation. We will begin with the participation constraints. Participation constraints. So within the participation constraints, we have two types of participations. The first participation is known as the total participation, and the second participation is known as the partial participation. So basically we have two types of participation constraints, the total participation and the partial participation. Now the total participation means that if you have an entity set E1. Now please listen carefully. Here I am not talking about an entity. I am talking about an entire or a complete entity set. So when in an entity set E1, each entity is participating in a relationship through a relationship set. Every entity of this E1, entity set E1, is participating in a relationship through a relationship set. Such kind of participation is known as the total participation. Next is the partial participation. In the partial participation, if I have an entity set E1 and some of the entities of this entity set E1 are not participating in the relationship through the relationship set, then I say that this entity set E1 has a partial participation. So basically total participation, all the entities from the entity set will participate in a relationship. Partial entity set, or some of the entities of the entity set E1 will not participate in the relationship. Let me explain this through an example. For example, a customer, we have three entities. When I talk of a bank, we have, say for example, three entities. The customer entity, the account entity, and the loan entity. So I am taking the example of a banking database over here. In a banking database, I will talk of three entities: customer, the account, and the loan. Now customer will have certain attributes, account will have certain attributes, loan will also have certain attributes. So we will not go into the details of all that, because we all know what would be the general attributes of a customer when we are talking of a banking database. It will have a customer name, customer account, the account will have an account number, a whole account opening date and all that. Loan will also have the date on which loan is taken, from which account number it is linked. So all those attributes. So we will not go into the details because here we want to know basically how we depict total participation in an ER model, how we depict partial participation in an ER model, and what is actually a total and partial participation. So to begin with, customer. What does customer do now? What is the relationship between a customer entity and an account entity? That a customer will obviously deposit in an account. Yes? And when I talk of the relationship between a customer entity and a loan entity, then I say customer takes loan. Yes? This will be the relationship between a customer and account and a customer and a loan, that a customer deposits in his account, and relationship between customer and loan would be that a customer takes loan. Yes? Now, as I told you in the previous video, that how do we depict total participation, partial participation? Partial participation is depicted through a double line. When I have to represent total participation is done using this single line. And when I have to depict partial participation, it is depicted using this double line. So, now partial participation means, some of the entities may not participate in the relationship, and total participation means all the entities will participate in the relationship. So we can see here that every person who has an account in the bank is a customer of the bank. Yes? When you have an account in the bank, that means you are a customer. So obviously every person who has an account in the bank is a customer of that bank. So hence we have total participation with the customer. But every customer does not need to open an account. You may be a customer of the bank when you are making a draft to the bank. So in that case, you need not have an account in that particular bank. So every person who has an account in the bank is a customer of that bank. So hence we have total participation. But every customer who comes at the bank for the banking services does not necessarily have an account. Hence partial participation for the account. Because then next is the relationship between customer and the loan entity set. Now every person who takes loan from the bank is a customer of the bank. That is for sure. That means the relationship between loan and customer is that every customer who takes a loan is a customer of the bank, because in order to take a loan from the bank you need to have an account of that bank. So every person who takes a loan is a customer. So hence we have the total participation, because every entity in this entity set loan will participate in the relationship with the customer entity, because every person who is taking a loan is a customer. But every customer does not take loan. It is not necessary that every person who is a customer of the bank will take loan from the bank. So hence partial participation for the loan entity set, because it is not necessary for every customer to take the loan. So this is the concept of total participation and partial participation. And partial participation here we have depicted through a double line, and total participation we have depicted through a single line. And here again double line depicts the total partial participation and the single line depicts the partial participation. So this is the concept of partial participation and the total participation, and is a part of the participation constraint. Next, the another feature of the ER model is the specialization. Now specialization says that if I have an entity set E, it can be broken into various sub-entities or subgroups E1, E2 till En, such that each of these subgroups may have their own properties. which are specific to them. Yes, they may have, it may have their own, this E1 may have its own attributes, E2 will have its own specific attributes, and En will have its own specific attributes. Now these will be the attributes which are specific to these subgroups. They will not be common among these subgroups. And also, of course, since they are a subgroup of the main entity set E, so they will also have some features common to each other. This is the concept of specialization. So E1, E2, En is a subgroup of E. All of them will have attributes common to E, as well as they will have some attributes or the properties which will be specific to them. That means the specific properties or attributes of E1, E2 and En will not share. The specific properties or attributes of E2, E1 and En will not share, and the specific properties and attributes of En, E1 and E2 will not share. Just like you have a car. When I say a four-wheeler is a generalization. And when I classify four-wheeler into, say for example, truck, car, or when I car, sedan, SUV, so these are all the specializations. So all these specializations, that is a truck, a car, a sedan or an SUV, will have features which would be general to a four-wheeler, but at the same time they will have features which are specific to them and they don't share with rest of the four-wheelers. So this is a concept of specialization. Or for example, when you take admission in, say, an engineering course, in the first year you study all the general subjects. Then you move on to your specializations, like the IT people will go take the IT subjects, or the civil engineers will take subjects related to civil engineering. The mechanical students will take subjects related to mechanical engineering. So basically I can say BTech is a generalization, and the specialization of BTech would be mechanical engineering, civil engineering, computer science engineering. So BTech is a generalization, and then within that we have specializations: mechanical engineering, civil engineering and computer science engineering. So mechanical, civil and CS engineering will have obviously properties of its main entity BTech engineering, but they will also have some properties which would be specific to them. Like in mechanical you will study subjects only specific to mechanical, in civil you will study subjects only to civil, in CS you will study subjects only specific to CS, as well as some common subjects. So this is the basic concept of specialization. So basically I can say that another example is that you have an account in a bank. Now this is the main entity. Okay, account is a general concept. Now if I specialize an account, it can basically be specialized into two different types: the saving account and the current account. Yes, now the account entity will have some attributes like the account number, the interest rate, the account holder name. So these are the attributes of the account entity. If I specialize this account further as the saving account and current account, both these specializations, that is the saving account as well as the current account, will have some properties or attributes which will be unique to them, as well as some common attributes of the main generalization, that is the account. So a saving account will have a rate of interest, and a current account will have overdraft charges or charges. So overdraft charges is an attribute which is not common to a saving account, and so at the same time the rate of interest or the account holder's name or the account number is a common attribute to both these accounts, but the overdraft charges is an attribute which is only specific to the current account and not the saving account. So this is the basic concept of specialization, and generalization is also part of it. So basically I can say that if I go take a bottom up approach, it is generalization. And if I take a top down approach, if I look from top to bottom, that is specialization. See, if I look from top to bottom, that is from account, if I start seeing and go down to saving account and current account, what I see is that account is being further specialized into saving account and current account. That is why I said that the specialization is a top down approach. But when I go upwards, I see this is a saving account, this is a current account. But if I generalize them, they are, both of them are accounts in general. So if I go from top to from bottom to top, that is bottom up approach, then I say it is generalization. So this is the concept of specialization and generalization. Now next we will see aggregation. Now, one of the disadvantage of an ER model is that it cannot depict relationship among relationships. Here we have seen that with the help of an ER model, I can depict relationship among two different entity sets. But when I want to depict relationship among relationships, that is not possible. Relationship sets, or when I want to depict a relationship among a relationship set and an entity set, that is also not possible. That is not possible actually in a systematic manner. So how to make that thing systematic? It is through aggregation. It basically provides a higher level abstraction to an entity set, wherein the relationship set is treated as higher level entity, and then the relationship between this higher level entity and the other relationship set or entity set is depicted. So this is the basic use of having aggregation. Now we will see it through an example that will simplify this thing. So basically, say for example, I have an example of an employee. I have an employee. I have branch entity. I have this job entity. And I have a manager entity. Now employee works for a particular branch. Employee does a job for a particular branch. An employee is managed by a particular manager, and a particular branch is taken care of by a particular manager. Yes, now this you can see is an ER diagram, but a little bit complicated, because relationship among relationship, or relationship among a relationship set and an entity set, I cannot easily easily represent here. I want to find out which manager is managing which branch, which manager is assigning which job to which employee, or which manager is managing which employee. So through this diagram, it becomes a little complicated to understand all this. It is a very complicated diagram. Employee, branch, employee, manager, branch, manager, manager, job. So when I want to find out which manager is taking care of which employee and assigning him which job at which particular branch, through this diagram it becomes a little complicated. So I want to I want to simplify this so that I can have a better understanding of the ER diagram. This is the basic purpose of an ER diagram, or any model for that case, that you want to have a better understanding of the system before designing the database. So what I do is that I use aggregation over here. Now the same diagram after using aggregation will be somewhat like this. Employee, branch, job. All these together is taken as one complete entity or a higher level entity. Higher level of abstraction. This is a higher level abstraction together, and now I will find out the relationship of all this with the manager. So now you can see automatically it became a little simple for me to understand this entire thing. EBJ represents which employee does what job at what branch, and EBJM represents which employee does what job at what branch and is managed by which manager, if I assume that a single manager is taking care of a single branch. So in that case, now this entire thing becomes simplified. Now if I want to find out which manager is taking care of which branch and assigning what job to which employee, this becomes much more simpler. As I told you, aggregation basically provides a higher level abstraction. This is the concept of higher level abstraction. The relationship between employee, branch and job through the relationship EBJ is classified into a higher level abstraction, and then this total complete abstraction has a relationship with a single entity set, manager, which is depicted through relationship EBJM. So now I can very easily represent relationship among a relationship set. This is a complete relationship set, relationship of a relationship set with an entity set. So this becomes a simplified approach. Now I can easily find out which manager is assigning which job to which employee at what particular branch through this aggregation, because this aggregation itself will tell me which employee is doing what job at which branch. Now I get this result, and from this manager and EBJM relationship I can easily find out the manager, which manager is basically assigning which job to which employee at which particular branch. So this is the concept of aggregation in order to help us provide a relationship between a relationship set or a relationship between a relationship set and another entity set. So this was it for today. I hope it was understandable.